and welcome back to the Awakening Philosophy podcast. My name is Jed, and we are in the philosophical midwifery Orange Sutra text, and we are in chapter 2. And we are exploring the part of chapter 2, which is the condition and the transmission of the pathologos. The pathologos is such a central, key, important, powerful influence in our whole lives. Where do we get it? And why is it so hard to remove? That's what we're looking at. The cause of human problems. Where do we get it from? Where did it come from? And why is it stuck there? Okay, and also last time we were reading about how it would have been risky. There's a certain risk that was a challenge for a child to question the scene that was orchestrated, so that they come to a certain false belief about their own worthiness and the integrity of reality. That was what all the drama was set up to create. But if the child questioned it, a whole lot of things would have been thrown into question. Let's jump into the text and have a look and have a little review of that. Okay, last time we covered the appearance. There's a certain appearance. Let's get my two pictures in frame behind me. Go. Okay, not gonna fit. So, the appearance of our guardians as knowing, despite obviously not being knowing, because that's the quest we are here to go on as people, as philosophers. That's the quest of midwifery and philosophy. But they were cosplaying or imitating an image themselves of what it means to be knowing, and that appearance had certain qualities that we looked at, certain, powerful, in control. All these things made them believable. And this is key to us because we also talked about how eager human beings are to get into a position where they can play the knower role, where we can share our deepest concerns and what we most believe about reality. The irony being, it's important that we do those things. If we don't talk about what we are most concerned about, if we don't talk about what we fundamentally believe about self and reality, we become strangers to ourselves. We don't learn, we become stuck. We have problems. Now the issue is, how do we want to communicate it? Do we want to communicate it in the dialectic that we're learning in philosophy, that Socrates is telling us is so important, and he's telling us it so often? Or do we want to communicate it as if it's true, as if we know when we don't? In a certain way where the act of forcing an opinion or communicating an opinion in a certain kind of drama, that act of communicating is an idea of what it means to be knowing. Maybe in your family, shouting is the way that people appear to be knowing. That's what they think it means to be knowing, to shout. Or to abuse people, that makes you knowing. Every family has a different one. Well, there are, of course, some commonalities between cultures and things like that. But what's important is that we realize that, let's go back a little bit. Here. The appearance is idealized, and the idealized image in the drama becomes the object to be imitated and the standard for what will be judged as knowing. A certain image in a drama, that's what it means to be knowing, right? No, Of course not. Although as a kid, that's what we believed. Okay, it's very interesting. An imitated ideal. Okay, and we talked about the conditions, open receptive state of mind, being the sole target of the audience, believing it's being done for our benefit, and the entire presentation, this big charade, becomes the ideal model that we imitate. So our lives become fate, or on a pre-planned set of train tracks, hurtling towards certain catastrophe. That's our lives. And that catastrophe can be characterized as creating the conditions for that scene to play out again. Only this time, you're in daddy's chair. You're in mummy's chair. Creating the conditions for this kind of drama or presentation so that you can play that image and that role, because that becomes an ideal that we model and imitate. Okay? All of this is a conclusion that we conclude for ourselves. While it was orchestrated, while it's a tradition, while there are supporting ways of being and beliefs within the family and the extended family and even within the culture, we came up with that conclusion about ourselves in the world. We didn't know we did because we didn't put words on it. Again, this idea of the importance of putting words on it. In fact, already we've mentioned that twice, so that might be the theme for the title for today. The importance of putting words. Because that desire to put words on what we most care about and what we most believe is the motivation behind us playing out our worst kinds of injustices. It's the motivation behind everything we do, whether we like it or not. Only we are seeking to do it in this way, as the knower. We have to learn how to do it in a different kind of way. And that part of that is philosophical midwifery. How do we talk about what's most important to us in a philosophical midwifery context, with someone using the dialectic, asking the questions so we can surface them, but actually look at their implications, look at how they affect our life, look at whether or not they are blocking us from our highest goals, look at whether or not they're rational and true. So this is a very different way of putting words on our beliefs. Open, curious, interested in truth, seeking excellence above all else. Even sacrificing the love and the role within this kind of family. If you stop hating women, no one in the family will love you. Well, if that's the sacrifice you have to make for truth and escaping your own ignorance and problems and injustice, great. All right, so it's important for us to put words on what's most important in a certain way. And that's kind of what we've been studying this whole time and discovering this whole time in midwifery and in philosophy, because the ideal way seems to be the art of the dialectic, modeled by Socrates. And of course, Pierre Grimes in philosophical midwifery as well. Okay, so interesting that we were in an open state of mind. So we see similarities to the spiritual initiation experience. In our reading of the Meno, Socrates has been talking about how important spiritual initiation is. Otherwise, you might think philosophy is just about logic or just about debating opinions and beliefs. And the only way that you can understand the world is just looking in the physical world, looking at examples in the physical world, pointing to this, pointing to that, coming up with a hypothesis. That's not philosophy at all. In fact, that's the opposite of philosophy. That's philodoxia, love of opinions. Socrates says, Meno, you are one of these people, one of the people who are the most common people in our time right now in modern culture, who think they know, and think knowing means being confident and loud and answering every question and being certain. And all you do is pick out quotes from authorities that back up your own beliefs that you got from your family anyway. Debate bros, or that's our whole culture, pretty much. But here we are discovering, so this is why you have to do, well, it's important to do philosophy and midwifery. What Socrates is identifying in Meno, that is our standard idea of what philosophy is, even today. But is the opposite, which is, Socrates calls it comedically tragic. How wrong he is. Because it's the opposite. What he's doing, following a kind of tradition, a way of being that he is identified as knowing. In midwifery here, we can see where it comes from. We can see the effect in Plato's dialogues, and we can see what Socrates tries to do to reason with these sorts of people. And one of the big questions when we read Plato is, does it actually work? Do the people that Socrates talks to in Plato's dialogues, do they change? That's a question that we have as we read. Because if they don't, or if certain people don't, like maybe Meno doesn't, I don't know yet, we haven't got there. Maybe it's because he needs philosophical midwifery. His way of knowing, confidently asserting, rocking up to Socrates and says, I know what virtue is, but let me ask you a question, can it be taught? And Socrates is like, whoa. That's a certain idea about what it means to be wise. You must be from this town and from this family, and you're probably attracted to this sort of a person. And you probably went to this sort of a teacher. Sees it straight away. Confidently asserting your truth in a certain kind of way. That's not virtue. That's not philosophy. And by the way, you won't be able to come up with any answers about what virtue is, even though you assume you know. That's the Meno. Here we're looking at where it might come from. A certain way of being, a certain way of asserting your own personal opinions, right? The way the world is right now. What's voting? What opinion do you like? Our economic system, our justice system, our education is all based on opinions. What about truth? What happened to truth? What happened to Socrates? Good question. Okay, so in the face of that, we seem to have a greater allegiance to certain kinds of opinions rather than the seeking of truth. Isn't that curious? Individually and as a species, as a culture, as part of our human evolution. Isn't that interesting? So here we're looking at where it comes from. Where do we get that image? If Socrates is saying that ain't true, but still, even in the face of Socrates, these people he talks with don't change their minds sometimes. Why? This is what's so powerful. This kind of, not initiation into true knowledge, but initiation into this kind of role, this kind of state of mind, this kind of drama, this kind of bullcrap. This is what it means to be knowing. That's what that's the takeaway when we're too young to put words on it. Or it might be too risky to put words on it for a lot of people. Now, in that conversation with Meno, Socrates says, you know what's tragic? You were learning philosophy, but you left or you stopped before reaching a initiation into the spiritual mysteries. So Socrates pointing out the importance of spiritual initiation. Philosophy is a training to reach true knowing, which is not physical. You can't know things through your physical senses. You can just perceive things through your physical senses. Because that's what they do. That's what they're there for. Reasoning happens in the mind, which is not physical. So we know that at least thinking, or beliefs even, are non-physical. But what's greater than thinking and beliefs? Knowingness. That's a complete removal from the physical world. In the divided line of Plato, Socrates said in book 6, at the end of book 6 of the Republic, Socrates says, by the way, beliefs are things that you use your mind to conclude about the physical world, but knowingness isn't even directed to the physical world. You need to use a different kind of sense that can perceive a whole different world. That's knowing, that's nous. Here we see what happens if we don't have that. A different kind of initiation, not into the realm of nous or being, the spiritual realm, which is the object of knowing, but the physical. You are looking at physical things, people appearing, not like beauty itself in the world of knowing, but the appearance of beauty. Not like care or providence itself in the realm of being, but the appearance of care. Not true power and strength in the realm of being, but the appearance. These are all physical appearances from your physical perceptions that we unknowingly make a conclusion about in this initiations scene. So these are fundamental differences between pathologos initiation and philosophical initiation or spiritual initiation. There are a lot of samenesses. The open receptive state of mind, a rare moment marked in contrast to the everyday world, being done for your benefit, you are the sole object, youthful openness and receptiveness. These are all the same, but what makes the difference? Well, number one, we can see what we are directing our perceiving senses to. In the pathologos is the physical world, this family scene. And in philosophy, we are using the ousia sense, the eye of the soul, a different sense that we have. Sometimes people call it the third eye. That has the ability to perceive the other dimension, being. So that's our object of focus, number one. Another difference is no words. No words allowed on this scene. And we've been looking at why. What happens if we put words on the scene? Well, if we did, we would be rejecting their most fundamental way of appearing to us as caring knowers. It would have stripped the status of authority, quite rightly so. It would threaten the old roles. The need for the parental role would be diminished. The loss of that relationship is easier to endure later in life, but could bring a severe crisis to an immature child. If we do accept it, we get accepted within a member of a family clan. We get given a certain kind of role that's detrimental to ourselves, but allows this bollocks to play out. So, difference. Your focus on the physical, imitation of the realm of being. All of these things are imitations of the realm of being. Appearing beautiful, appearing certain, appearing knowing. And that's our conclusion. This must be being. This must be knowingness. Whereas true initiation, that Socrates is pointing to in the Meno, is so important. That we lack in our culture when we learn philosophy, because we are like Minos. We're stuck debating and fighting and exploiting and killing each other over whose opinion's right, who gets to have the opinions that justify their greediness and selfishness and exploitation. That's our current world, level of opinions. Therefore, we need to, if we want truth, that's always true, principles, we need to look at where the principles live. Being, truth, being, eternal truths. So there's a difference. One is the realm of opinion, one, or false beliefs as well, pathologos. One is the realm of truth and principles and that which will unite. And our purpose, says Socrates. Another difference is no words, lots of words. Words, the dialectic is our method to reach it. And then after you've had the experience, you get balloons. You put more words on it, you have a dialectic on it. You use your experience, your vision, your experience of the realm of being, more balloons. in every dialectic you have, because the dialectics are about that experience. What is beauty itself? Well, I've had that experience. I'm going to use that. Not only that, as I read Socrates, this is something Socrates says in the Phaedo, I'm going to judge the logos that I'm reading. Does what I'm reading, do the arguments of Socrates bring me back to that experience as a kind of marker of truth? Not only do they accurately describe that experience, does it bring me back into it? Does it allow me to keep the memory as my state of mind? So we seek truth and being, and we use words, whereas in the midwifery, it's the appearance of truth and being, and we don't use words. So these are two big differences, and we've seen a lot of samenesses. If you're watching, I'm encouraging you to make your own notes. Think about it in the day. What are the similarities about the two? What are the samenesses? What are the differences? Look for patterns. Put words on it. Put words on what's most significant and your most powerful beliefs. Only the way that you're doing it in that kind of way is with wonder, with curiosity, putting together your learning. Because you're going to be wondering and contemplating and acting on your beliefs anyway. You're going to be trying to seek out this condition to present your beliefs anyway, only as a knower, the pathologos knower. Why not just talk about it with your friends in a curious way, looking for puzzles? Why not put words on it to yourself, to your friends, in your own documents, in your emails, whatever you like to write with? Looking for the similarities and differences between these two kinds of initiation. One that leads you to your destiny, one that binds you to your fate and problems and tragedies. Use this as a way of expressing yourself. And if you like, you can join the Discord and share your work with us, with the rest of us. Different way of talking, right? Different than this. Okay, and at the time of the recording, there was there's a black Republican governor who's outed as calling himself a black Nazi and saying that slavery isn't bad. And what's wild about that is there's no principle. The opinion that slavery isn't bad, that a lot of Nazis and fascists and right-wingers believe, capitalists believe, is just an opinion that serves them in their position. It justifies wealth inequality. It just justifies capitalism. Having slaves working for you. It justifies the prison system. It justifies you having the wealth and the power over other people. And the frustrating thing about that is there's no principle there. That's the whole right-wing or conservative movement or fascist movement. There's no principle. When they say slavery isn't bad, and you say, okay, well then you can be a slave. No. That's not a principle. It doesn't apply equally to everyone as an eternal truth from being. It applies sometimes to some people and not to me. It only applies when I am the one who has the slaves and I can abuse and rape and torture whoever I want with no ramifications. That's what I like to do. But I don't want to be the one being tortured and raped. So it's not a principle. This is the thing that needs to change in our world. The elevation from personal beliefs and opinions that serve the pathologos that we have, because this is the cause of it. This is the cause. All the other opinions and ways of being are just ways of getting back there or solidifying it, or as we were talking about last time, a dialectic between the pathologos and our image of ourselves. So that's why racists have racist opinions about government And, chauvinists have chauvinist opinions about education. That has a root cause. That's what we're looking at. So we need to do two things, politically and within ourselves. Philosophical midwifery to see what's at the cause of these opinions, because you ever noticed, if you're arguing at the level of opinions, you never change anyone's mind. Of course not. Opinions didn't come from reason. It came from specifically the lack of reason, the inability to ask questions, the riskiness to put words on it, the inability or the danger of challenging, asking questions, putting words. All of these things were explicitly denied. That's the drama. All of the drama is to say, you better not ask questions right now. So what we see here is we are not being taught. Teaching true, and here we have another distinction between spiritual initiation and pathologos initiation. Asking questions or being taught, where you can ask questions, you can challenge, you are allowed to speak. Whenever they say no, shut up, or no, you can't, or it's too dangerous, or I'll get you if you do, you're in the other game. So what does that mean? That means the causal beliefs for all of our ignorance, injustice, and false opinions that cause division within our soul and within our planet came without reason. It's an imitation of a kind of ideal that itself rejects reason, because our parental figure was, thumbs up, was rejecting reason at the time. What does that mean? That means it doesn't matter how many debates you have or even dialectics you have with somebody who is attached to their opinion, they're not going to change their opinion. Doesn't matter if you genocide their whole race, like what's happening right now in Palestine. Doesn't matter. Their opinions are not going to change. Because it wasn't, genocide is stupid anyway. But even if you were to, for lots of reasons, of course, the idea is you can't solve a problem without doing philosophical midwifery. Let's remove genocide from the table, because that should stop right now. Even reasoning, even if you're a Socrates-like figure, if you're using the dialectic, you'll only be able to get so far until you hit the kind of way of thinking that will challenge this, which is why, famously, you can't reason with conservatives, you can't reason with right-wingers, with fascists, tyrants, because the opinion or the false belief about themselves and reality, that's the cause of all of their way of being, including their opinions, political, social opinions and all that, was not learnt through reason. So it can't be unlearned with simple reason. It's not that kind of a belief. There are classes of beliefs that you can do that. If you want to become, we talk about becoming a vet. You can learn scientific beliefs by going to veterinary college about how cats and dogs make cat and dog babies. And if you were a little kid and you thought to yourself, oh, cats are girls and dogs are boys, and that's how they marry each other, and that's how kittens and puppies come, then once you find the reason and evidence by going to veterinary college, you can get rid of that false belief. That's what learning is. But there's a certain kind of false belief that we are seeing and learning about here called the pathologos that you can't remove through reason, because it wasn't learnt through reason. That's key. Thumbs up. In other words, our whole political system should be based around philosophical midwifery for at least half of the day, the first half of the day. Because that's where the divisive opinions and which is the cause for all of our injustices globally, domestically, and internally within our own soul. This is the cause. So we're learning about where it came from, so we can come to some insights like we just did about why it's so powerful, why it's so hard to remove, why it's the cause of the problems that we find ourselves in. And also so we can learn what we can do instead. How can we solve this problem that isn't being solved within our own souls, that isn't being solved within our own country, that isn't being solved within our own species? How can we solve it? What's the system or paradigm or model for solving human problems? That's what we're reading now. Okay, so when we address the cause, then we can use reason to say, okay, what's the principle? So this Republican governor who says slavery is good, is that a principle? In other words, is it an eternal truth in being that will apply to everyone? That we should be making our laws around? Because that's what's true, that's what's good, and the apprehension and understanding of that realm of being is our goal as human beings. That's our evolution, that's learning, that's philosophy, said Socrates. If so, then you can be a slave. You can be raped and abused and tortured. Because if it's a principle, you should be able to play that role too. It should apply to everyone. And of course, as soon as that happens, libertarians or conservatives or right-wingers, whoever else, say, no. I like my freedom to do anything or freedom to have slaves, which incorporates the libertarians as well. Hey, there shouldn't be any principles. I should get to do what I want. That only works if you have the power over people. You want the freedom to play out your injustice. So when they say, oh yeah, it's good to have rich and poor, well then you be poor. Elon Musk, then you be poor. Donald Trump, you be poor. Jeff Bezos, you work at the Amazon factory for no money and pee in bottles and not be able to afford food and rent. Have no medical care. If that's a principle, are you saying it's a principle like Musk does, like Bezos does, like the rich people do? Is it a principle like they say it is for everyone? Because that is what makes it a principle. Or is it just a bullshit opinion that you're selectively cherry picking because of the position you're in? In other words, does it apply to others but not you? That's not a principle. Can't make your laws around that. That's tyranny by definition. Simple, right? Simple when you say it. But again, that's why we have to reawaken philosophy, because where do those principles lie? It's not in the physical world, because there are many physical examples of slavery. So how are you going to reason that slavery is bad? Right, this is what these fascists do, like Jordan Peterson. Oh, look, here's a physical example of some lobsters being violent and aggressive. Therefore, I'm going to cherry pick that physical example as though it's a principle because I happen to be a rich white male and I want hierarchies that use violence and oppression. So I'm pretending that this physical example shows a principle so I can selectively apply it because of the position I'm in. That's the fascist grift. That's the right-wing grift. And it's only one further step to say, oh, the people that benefit or have power over others based on religion, do they all say we are the right religion and the other religions are wrong and bad? And that's just the way the world is? Because God says so? So they go one step further and they don't even have to have physical proof. There's no proof. I just feel it. I was inspired and I had a vision, says Joseph Smith. And I wrote these sayings about what Jesus wants, and he wants me to be in charge. I have this holy text and it says that I should be in charge. Well, if it's a principle, then why don't you be the oppressed religion? Why don't you allow it to be them that are the ones that are the chosen people? Why is it always you? A self-serving non-principle used to create the conditions for or justify this kind of tyranny, this kind of knowingness, this kind of care and certainty. Simple? Well, if that's the case, if that's what we're doing, if we are just mindlessly, or maybe not mindlessly, unconsciously, unmindfully playing out the implications of our pathologos that we get from an early age in this scene, what do? Well, isn't it obvious? Learn about it. Learn about the paradigm of addressing it called philosophical midwifery. Address it, and then use that freedom to actually find the true principles, the actual truth. That's philosophy. So it's pretty much two things we're supposed to be doing. We can do, really. Or not do it and play out the tragic implications of the pathologos that might bring about the destruction of the planet and our species. Seems simple, right? Well, you say, well, that's simple for me because the YouTube algorithm suggested your channel and I'm lucky enough to have come across it. But what about our species? Well, it's just as above, so below. Use those principles to create the laws so that everyone has the conditions to do those two things that benefit. Can we set up a society using the laws and our institutions such that we are all free from slavery and oppression and all that tyrannical bullcrap that we've been talking about? Free from that. Everyone gets a house and food and stuff just because we can. We have the technology to free ourselves from work. And in that free time, create the conditions where everyone can learn midwifery. It's not just a roll of the dice whether the YouTube algorithm recommends this channel. And then everyone can do real philosophy with the Balboa translation. It's not just whether or not, you stumble across the other series on this channel, or one of the few other Platonic philosophers who are out there. There are a small handful. Why is it only a small handful? Well, we can look at the historical journey to where we are now. But the important thing is we have what we need to turn the ship around. That's why we're here. You're not stuck to fate necessarily if you're in this game. So good for us. So that's where we are in the text. The imitation of all of those things that we learn about actually exist in being. That's what we learn in philosophy. The imitation we get in this false initiation scene becomes the drama that we seek in everything we do, so that we can play this role in everything we do, because we don't know how jealously we guard our false opinions. We are only dimly aware of those conclusions that we have come to. And even though it can be dangerous to express your opinions because most people don't agree with you and no one cares about your dumb opinions, who cares about opinions? And even if you do, even the people who will care about your dumb opinions are only caring about it because you're challenging them and they're getting pissed at you. So even though it's dangerous and difficult to get in that position where you can express your own personal opinions as though you know, we still try and do it in everything we do. Isn't that wild? Why? Even though we can't be sure that our beliefs will be treated with the same respect we treat them. For all this uncertainty and difficulty, we know that we're likely going to enjoy playing that bollocks role. It's a sickness, isn't it? Sadistic even. We think we'll enjoy, even though it's that tricky and dangerous to get in that position, we still think we'll want to do it. There's something uplifting about playing that role. We feel alive and intense and proud and noble and important. Look at me crushing you. Look how important I am. Finally, someone cares about my dumb opinions that I've been waiting my whole life to express to someone. To crush someone as I was crushed myself. Very different from how Socrates is treating Meno. There's no crushing. There's no giving opinions or advice. It's inviting to a higher way of being called the dialectic, where you reason together as friends, following the dialectic and logos to reach truth and understanding together. Opposite to this game that motivates all human beings, whether we like it or not, until we get into the game of midwifery. That's how significant this paradigm is, this philosophical midwifery is. It's literally the thing that frees us from the cause of our tyranny and injustice to our own souls and to anyone else that who happens to listen to our crap. In particular, our children who don't have a choice. That's why it's a family tradition or curse, family sickness. So, interesting? Yes. Super interesting. Are we happy for Pierre for doing all this work for us? Yes. So big round of applause to Pierre, the author of this book. All right. Yes, and it's a big scene. They appear as knowing. Be dangerous to challenge it. Be severe crisis to the immature child. But no, we are not immature children. If you have access to this channel and you've stayed along this long, then you are unlikely an immature child unable to ask questions. So keep the courage. Keep your cool. Keep the hunt for the dialectic and logos. And keep doing it at all times. Those are the 4 virtues. And let's keep moving. That's the jumping into the reading noise. Clearly, to secure the drama's message, players in the Pathologos drama always pay careful attention to their audience. They always do their best to show themselves most appropriately. For they know the message may not be believed if the performance is not taken as real. So the players of this game realize that they are pretending, and it's important to play out the steps in this drama, otherwise they might not be believed. The message may not be believed if the performance is not taken as real. So again, we're learning about this, the conditions for our Pathologos transfer, but everything we learn, we ask a question, what's the same and different? What's... Go back. Okay, everything we learn, we ask what's the sameness and the difference applied to philosophy and truth. Well, the true message that we should believe or know, so maybe belief becomes knowing, is known because it is actually real, not just taken as real. Surely in these dramas we are in awe. Awe is part of it. Is it part of philosophy too? Of the emergence of those about us, and impressed by so there's the emergence, they're finally showing themselves in a new kind of way, impressed by the power of the moment. Wow, this is rare. From those who we believe know us best, again, we believe they know, and we learn something we believe, again, belief, must be true. And true in a personal way. It's true universally, and for me especially. This is my reality, myself. When our parents share with us their beliefs, we participate in their beliefs. For in their revealing what they themselves believe about our experience, so they're revealing what they believe about our existence, we share in their reality. share in their reality, as we share in their mode of thought. So this is an interesting thing. We share in someone's reality by sharing in their mode of thought. How does that relate to different frequencies or different vibrational levels, or what some people call different dimensions? How do we share in the dimension of somebody else and therefore share in their level of reality? By sharing in their mode of thought.
Wow.
The content of the pathologos belief content may only in part be verbal, but it was implicit in the intention of those authorities, their manner, and the situation itself. So only part of it's verbal. So we talk about an obvious example. The rare moment dad actually sits with you to watch a TV show and it's just you and him. Normally he's not around the house or whatever, and he turns to you. He doesn't say, let me tell you about don't trust women, but he might say, hey, you know women? Wow, he's sharing something. He is emerging in a way he's never done, and he seems to, there's some power of this moment. Is let me tell you what's true about your world, son. You know women? And he does that face. Now you might know him well enough to know what that means. Don't trust them, or they're no good, or they're less than men, or something like that. Whatever it is, part of it was not verbal. You know women? And he does this. And you think, oh, women are stinky. So in part verbal, in part non-verbal. The guardian's message is believed since, so it's believed since the appearance, it's believed since the appearance is made believable. When we are young, we are impressed by the appearance of what? Sincerity. Wow. Look how sincere he is with his ignorance. We watch those we imitate, we intimately relate with emerge. So there's an intimacy in our relationship. They emerge from the background of their normality. Now I'm realizing that I have highlighted almost every word in this book so far, but that's because everything that he said is so significant. It's amazing how important all of these things are. And okay, so they emerge from the background of their normality and play out the pathologos scene. I'm trying not to highlight everything. We experience the appearance of sincerity. Oh, so let's highlight this as well. When they emerge, what are they doing? They emerge to do what? Just play out a scene. Oops, wrong color. Let's go. What color? Let's go this. They emerge to play out their pathologos scene. Okay, they have the appearance. Yes, fine. They have the appearance of sincerity, casting an image of beauty and truth. For even the appearance of beauty and truth has a power. Wow. That's what we've been talking about today, funnily enough. Talking about the appearance of being. Because beauty and truth are the two key words that we associate to the world of being. These are the two big ones that Socrates uses most of the time, especially in the symposium. These are the two biggies, truth and beauty. Truth because we seek... See, I have a theory about this. In the Republic, he identifies there are three parts of our psyche or soul. There is what you might relate to your belly, the biggest part, your desiring part, what you want to put in your belly. You want to eat a sandwich, or you want things for you. There's the part of your soul that you might relate to your heart, that which motivates you to move outwardly, desire things in the world, act in the world. And then there's the part of your soul that reasons and plans. Okay, that's Socrates helping us understand the aspects of our soul. So if beauty and truth are so important, do we desire things that are beautiful? When we move out in the world, do we want people to, do we seek truth? Do we want to be seen as someone who has truth and integrity? Do we outwardly move to find the truth? Do we want people in our world to see us in a true way, not have lies about us? So maybe truth and beauty are two aspects of being that that are in harmony with our souls. So that you could say, well, without this, it would be an unjust universe. If being, which is our goal, to know reality that's eternal, to know mind itself, if this is our goal, if this is where the principles are, this is what we have to reach to live well, individually and socially, then there should be some sort of harmony between it and us that propels us to reach it, that makes us want to get there. Otherwise, it would be a crappy universe. If there was nothing that would motivate you to get to your goal. Now, if one of the aspects of beauty, of being, is beauty, then that desiring part, if you push it, if you seek excellence in your desire, if you use your reasoning part to figure out what you really desire, not just beautiful things, but the ultimate beauty, what's the highest experience of beauty that you can have forever, not just a one-off and then you're sad because your baby left you. But if I have forever, then you'll reach, following that path, perhaps you'll reach being, because being has beauty itself. Equally so, if you seek truth, following a similar sort of reasoning, you'll be propelled to reach being, because one of the aspects of being is truth, which might be why Socrates leans on these two words when he talks with other people to get them into philosophy, to get them to step out of their ignorant way of being, that we are understanding the causes of here, to seek actual beauty and truth. Isn't that interesting? It is. The answer is yes. Now, why are we talking about it now? Because the thing that Socrates is encouraging them to step out of, the thing that causes our problems within our soul and within our race, actually has the same root cause. We desire beauty and truth, only the image of it, the way, the nature, the way that our soul is in harmony with reality, the way that reality is just so that we are propelled to reach being, is that we seek truth so much and we desire beauty so much, those two parts of our soul, that even the imitation of those, even the image of those, has the power to control our entire lives and screw up everything we do and cause us to have all of the problems we have within our soul and within our race. What a powerful thing that is. Causing all of our problems? Holy crap. How powerful. And it's just an image. Well, then we must be super mega philosophers at our core if our souls seek beauty and truth so much that all of our misery and suffering is caused by its image, just the appearance, just its image. Isn't that fascinating? We are such philosophers, so that this can have the effect on us. Isn't that interesting? The answer is yes. Okay, Indeed, we know well enough that beauty can be persuasive. Yes, we know that. Even physical. We know well enough. Even physical beauty can be persuasive. Beauty carries the sense of truth about it. So that's just what we've been talking about, haven't we? So why is beauty and truth? Why does beauty create truth? Why do marketers and advertising grifters and con artists in our disgusting capitalist system use pretty girls to hold the can of soda? While they say, this is going to make you happy. Well, the beautiful girl is saying it, so I'm going to buy that product that will give me diabetes and pollute the environment, and the companies steal all the water and pollute the environments, and every $1 billion they make literally makes everyone else poorer, because money is relative. You can't have rich people getting richer without everyone else becoming poorer. That's what rich means. So any system that allows for people to become rich is saying, screw everyone. Screw 95% of people. You can go to hell and die, because I want that 5% to get rich. Because rich means having more than someone else. I'm surprised that this isn't talked about every day on the news. Like, hey, our country is getting richer. Look at the GDP. No. You're creating more suffering, because rich people means more than others. That's what it means, you dopes. Anyway, important to realize. So, what should money be? Well, talk about it now. The transition phase to where we should be with money would be understanding money as kind of like water, flowing. Anyone who tries to create a dam and create a little lake with all of the water for themselves is destroying the purpose of money. Understand that. Then you can see that the idea of hoarding or setting up a dam is destroying the purpose for money. Now, of course, that's only a transition phase to realizing that money itself isn't really needed if you're rational. But that's a conversation for another day. Okay, why does beauty carry a sense of truth about it? Well, didn't we just say that the realm of being has various eidos? English translated as forms or ideas. They are not concepts, they are not ideas, they are not abstractions. Eidos in the Greek, and this is important because this is one of the greatest betrayals against philosophy and humanity, mistranslating the word eidos as concept or form. And if you go to learn it at college, that's what they'll teach you, and it's wrong. It's dead wrong. What is eidos? The various aspects of this realm of being. One way I like to think of it is, okay, the laws, as an example, you could say that there is a universe which has various laws of physics in the physical universe. So we have the magnetism, we have nuclear forces, we have gravity, we have all of these different things in our physical world. They all exist all at once. You might be able to intellectually pull out something. Let's pull out intellectually gravity and look at it by itself to understand gravity itself. But it doesn't really, gravity doesn't exist absent from those other things. It's an aspect of the physical universe. You don't actually pull it out. But you can experience it in a greater degree than all of the others if you're jumping out of a plane. When you're jumping out of a plane, yes, all of those every other physical law of the universe is still acting on you. You are still experiencing all of it. Only the gravity one is huge right now for you. That's the metaphor I like to use to understand the eidos. They're all aspects, not of the physical world, but of the metaphysical world, or the intelligible, or the mind world. Metaphysics before physics. All of the things that we study in philosophy are there. Beauty, truth, justice, goodness. These are all the things that we apply the dialectic to understand and experience. And when we do experience it, if you experience the beauty itself, it's still good. It's still true. It's still goodness. It's still the experience of self. But beauty is the biggest one you're experiencing. So you'll describe it as, wow, I experienced beauty itself. That's the symposium. But it's also truth. That's why we can say, oh, beauty carries with it a sense of truth. The two seem to be intimately connected. Yep. In the realm of being, not necessarily in the physical world. That's the difference. Why? Because the physical world is caused by a diminishment or a what's the word? Yeah, diminishment, a reflection, a lesser version of the realm of being. Kind of like look in a mirror, you'll see a two-dimensional image of yourself. It's based on you. It's intimately connected. You are still causing the two-dimensional version of you, but there are the fundamental things it's missing. It doesn't have intelligence. It doesn't have will. Some things are reversed. Left hand is right hand in your mirror. So the most important and significant things about you, your dreams, your goals, your will, your consciousness, that's not in your two-dimensional reflection. Now we can say even our 3D world is a reflection of the 4D world, or the realm of being. So a lot of these important things, like the connection between truth and beauty, is lost in our physical world. So you can use beautiful people to tell you, drink this soft drink. And it's not going to be true because of that diminishment into a lower dimension. So what? Well, so what this? So what? We are learning this actual thing, this very thing, this principle of the diminution or the distorted reflection from one dimension to another, just like when we look at ourselves in the mirror, is the cause of all of our problems. Why? Because we take this realm here, the realm of appearances in the physical, as this, as the realm of being. So, and we apply the principles that would apply to being. In being, truth and beauty are connected. In the physical world, they ain't. Our soul seeks truth and beauty in the realm of being. This appearance takes over our whole lives instead. So in other words, it's the principle of creation through diminishment, or through reflected into different reflection. Okay, I'll say that again. It's the principle of creation through reflection into lower dimensions, causally, that gives us the conditions for our problems. Because the appearance, physical appearance of beauty, we mistake as truth, and that's what we're reading here. Isn't that interesting? I think so. Does Owen Wilson think so?
Wow.
Does his brother think so?
Wow.
Do his cousins think so?
Wow. Wow. Wow.
All of his family think so, and I agree. Okay. So we know that beauty can be persuasive, sense of truth, and we reflected on why. Thus, beauty plays a central role in the formation of problems. Does it what? But in some cases, it is not apparent until reflected upon, which is what we just did. So, for those saying, hey, read faster. I want to have all of the information in my brain. So that's how you read, right? That's how I read at school. When I went to college, they gave me 50 books to read in 1 week. That's what makes you smart. So what's all this reflection? Well, the fact that beauty plays a central role in the formation of problems is so significant. Do we have problems individually and culturally and societally? Yes. What's the cause? Beauty. Is that important to understand where problems come from? Well, I think so. Is it worth taking our time and not reading the, books 30 to 50, 30, 31, 32, just to be clever? And instead reflect, because recognizing that beauty plays a central role in the formation of problems is not apparent until it is reflected upon. That's what we've been doing. We've been reflecting. So, hooray. And balloons? Yes, balloons. And confetti? Yes. When subjects reflect that those significant to them never seemed so forthright, so decisive, so much themselves, right? And we've been talking about that. Our waking world is a dialectic between this pathologos belief and its implementation into our face, mask, persona, image of self. So when we see someone, well, that's what they're like. Yeah. Finally, they're being forthright about the essence of their nature, their pathologos. Yeah, of course, that's them. The way that they look, the way that they talk, their persona, the ways of relating, all of these things have been cementing into their sense of self as a walking dialectic of our problem. You're finally seeing them be, this is really the essence. Yeah, of course it's their essence. It's the cause of all that other crap that you think is them, that they think is them, but ain't them. But it seems so forthright and decisive and so much themselves when they were acting out their pathologos. This is the root thing. Everything has been a reflection of, so speaking of reflection, as the physical world is a reflection of being, their whole sense of identity and way of being is a reflection of their pathologos. Therefore, when they're finally doing their pathologos to the highest degree, it looks like they can't be any more themselves than they are. Isn't that interesting? Yes. Now, what also is interesting is, what's the equivalent in philosophy? When we reach being as our goal, true being, that this is a reflection of, an image of, distorted image of, and we incorporate that into our sense of self, into our way of functioning, into the dialectics we use in our thinking and acting at all times, are we actually being most of the real self as possible? Could that be why one understanding of our purpose and destiny that we gain through midwifery and philosophy is knowing and showing the self? It's a good saying, because it's simple and there's a little bit of a rhyme in there. Knowing and showing the self. Make that a bumper sticker. Our destiny is to know and show the self. And then say, subscribe to Awakening Philosophy podcast. And sell those bumper stickers because they're rad. And give me some of the commission. They never seem so forthright, decisive, so much themselves as when they were acting at the pathologos. They then can see there is a beauty there. See, there is a beauty there. Surely there are times when we are surprised to have forgotten. We are surprised to have forgotten that beauty is not an invariable sign of the presence of truth. Can't believe I forgot that. But our youth, we had not yet learned that sad lesson. So even as adults, we can be tricked by the pretty girl. Or tricked by the advertising. I mean, One of the biggest industries in our disgusting capitalist world is the marketing industry. You go to university to learn this? Nope. What's the biggest department of most universities? Business and marketing. What's marketing? How to lie to people, to manipulate them, to act against their own interest, using the appearance of truth and the abuse of the actual principles, like the principle of the connection between beauty and truth and being. How do you abuse them and misuse them to manipulate people to act against their best interests so that you can exploit and derive profit from them? Siphon off their value. Because that's what it means to be rich. And if I'm going to spend all this money to go to college, I need to get rich. Especially since there are other people trying to get rich off that desire by making me go into $30,000 of student debt. What? Wouldn't that be the height of tyranny? The height of crappy bullshit injustice? To have a marketing department, which is literally the grossest exploitation of what should be the most highest, most ideal, most sought after principles of reality? How can we use our soul's desire to know self, reach the good, reach truth and beauty? How can I use that very, very important aspect of our being that makes us able to reach our destiny? How can I exploit that, screw it over, to lie to people, to manipulate them, to give me money, which is against all of their own interests? How can I act in the most harmful way, exploiting the most precious, sacred principles of reality? That's marketing, a multi-billion-dollar industry. Yay, capitalism. No, boo. Sad cloud, rainy cloud. Sad, rainy cloud.
Flippity-jibbity nonsense.
I don't want to eat a monkey.
Okay. So that's another thing that we gain. Like, we're learning about philosophy, we're learning about midwifery, we're learning about our problems. We're also learning about why does everyone intuitively cringe at the idea of marketing? Why do we all hate ads? Why do we all hate business people? Well, because they are specifically exploiting and abusing the most sacred, important principles of our soul, designed to help you reach your highest destiny. They are abusing that and misusing that to do the exact opposite. Act in what harms yourself and your soul and our species, and creates wealth inequality and destroys the planet. They're acting in the most harmful ways, using the most sacred of principles that we have learned that might not have been obvious unless we reflected upon it in a certain way, with the paradigm of philosophical midwifery and the paradigm of philosophy in mind, because that's where the principles lie. So we reflect with an eye on principles to understand what is a distortion or a diminution of them, to make sense of the world around us. Good? Yes. All right. So, when you're young, you have not realized yet that beautiful things are not true, and that principle is just a thing that's often exploited and abused by people in capitalism, and also other people who try to abuse people or play out their ignorance. We haven't learned that beauty and truth are not always connected, but are misused when we are young. As we grow up, we start to learn it, and it's a sad lesson. That's the sadness. We just talked about it. That's why we had the sad cloud. But even then, we still are prey to it. Even though we know marketing is nonsense and it's a lie and it's abusing these principles, you kind of still want that soda. You kind of still want that nice dress or that nice car. It would be nice to have that $1 million mansion, wouldn't it? You kind of think that it might make you happy. So, we are surprised to forget it even as adults. In learning this content, we become aware of the unsuspected social reality. Wow, it's what we've just been talking about. Hooray. In accepting that reality, so if we accept that and we don't reflect on it in the way we've been doing, according to principles, to understand its cause in principles, and from the cause we can see how it's manifests its effect, then we see the physical manifestations of it. Should probably write this on the board. So here, we're looking to the principles in being, which are causal of the physical HYSICAL physical manifestations around us. So that's what we're doing with midwifery, aren't we? We get into midwifery because we notice this. We notice the physical manifestations of our problems, of our blocks, of our repeating negative states of mind, of our tragedies and dramas that we play out cyclically without actually learning and changing. Or if we're doing philosophy, which is to reach our highest goal, which we talked about, knowing and showing the self, we hit blocks along those, inevitably. This is the only way really to surface the entirety of your pathologos so you can remove it and free yourself from it completely. Because philosophy is the highest goal. And so it will surface the highest aspects of your problem, pathologos. So we start noticing this, and then we want to do midwifery to find the cause. But as we learn the principles of midwifery, which we're doing now, we're learning about the causal scene, the early scene, why it was causal. And we understand the principles of that causal scene by understanding how it relates to being, because that's where we get the principles. So the causal scene was the origin scene that was rare and special, but also it was directed, looked like it was beautiful, it looked like it was true, it looked like it was caring, looked like it was about us, ourselves. These are all aspects of being. So the way that the causal scene, the origin scene, can be a cause is we can only see how and why it's a cause if we are reflecting on it. And if we're reflecting on it by going all the way back to its relationship to principles in being. And then from there, we can see how the cause is a cause, how it then manifests around us. So we talked about what we just read, the social reality that we accept. We accept capitalism, which is terrible. Always. We accept wealth inequality. We accept tyranny and fascism. We accept a two-party state where one person is capitalist and one person is capitalist and super fascist at the same time. There's no idea for truth, for being. It's all based on opinions. So all of these things we've been talking about today are physical manifestations around us that we're all suffering from, that we will never understand and free ourselves from unless we reflect on them. Not reflect on their manifestations through our physical senses. That doesn't solve things. Reflect on them by understanding its causes, which is, how does it relate to the principles of being itself? So one of the questions that we raised earlier in the text was, this great problem of humanity. If we are so amazing with our technology and computers and things, why the heck are we so irrational and immature when it comes to ourselves? Why are we not solving our problems and reaching our highest level of development? That's a huge problem when we have internet and stuff. Isn't that amazing? Because to understand problems, you need to do this. And since Socrates, we have been saying there is no such thing as being. Shut up. Because I want to start a church where I tell you what God is. Or I want to keep you tied to the physical world of trees. It's a tree. So I can get you to chase the things I have, money and resources that I own, so I can abuse you. All of which is playing out the idea of knowing from your pathologos. But what it means is if you say there's no such thing as being, there's no actual truth, and there's no, one of the aspects of being is the logos and dialectic, which is our way to reach truth. Then you can say, oh, just have opinions. Vote for this person, vote for this person, this opinion, this opinion, this opinion. And who has the biggest gun wins. If we realize, well, hang on a second, there is such a thing as being. Socrates said so. Parmenides said so. Many people have experienced it. You can experience it and understand it. Therefore, this isn't needed, the cause of our division. This isn't needed, the cause of oppression and suffering. This isn't needed, same, oppression and suffering. All that's needed is the logos through the dialectic to reach being, which is true for everyone. Everyone. Confetti. Everyone. Don't have to shoot anyone. Okay? So that's the importance of reflection, not only of our physical world, but starting at the realm of being first. In other words, we need to reawaken, name of the show, name of the podcast, true philosophy. Pick up Socrates with the Balboa translation. Pick up our spiritual heritage that was stolen from us through the Dark Ages and the Emperor Justinian in the Dark Ages. Easy? Yes. Maybe. I don't know. Fun? Oh, yeah. So the importance of... Now, so what are we doing? We're understanding the unsuspected social reality, all those things that we socially accept. That voting is okay because everything is opinion. No. That's crazy. That 2 parties is good. What? How many doctors do you see? It's just truth, right? That we can all become rich one day. No, that's not what rich means. Rich means no one can become rich except for 1 or 2. Rich means having more than others. So you can't all become rich. It's literally impossible. The richer someone becomes, the poorer, by definition, you become. So every hour you work, if your boss is earning $20 and you're earning $10, you are literally making yourself poorer the longer you work. It's a... Ponzi scheme. It's a Ponzi scheme. So what? Well, these are unsuspected false beliefs about our reality that we accept and participate in unless we reflect on it in this kind of a way that we're learning. So not only are we learning to the conditions of our pathologos so we can free ourselves from our problems, we're learning how to think. We're learning how to read. We're learning how to reason. So we can also apply it to social reality. Isn't that interesting? Yes, very interesting. Our belief creates a bridge between the pathologoscene and the milieu around us. So that's what we were talking about here. Okay? The belief creates a bridge between the pathologoscene, our individual one, and the milieu around us. That's the social pathologos, or the social beliefs, the social reality that we buy into. That has all those, again, unsuspected false beliefs, like capitalism is good. Why? There's nothing true about that. Oh, but look how pretty the advertising is about capitalism. The American dream, and everyone can be rich one day, right? Well, that's a very pretty image. I would love everyone to be rich. Literally, the only way that can happen is if we remove capitalism, because everyone being rich means everyone having enough, equally. Rich means some people get stepped on. So if everyone is rich, literally no one is rich, which will make everyone rich and happy. That's obvious when you reason it out. But why do we accept something which is not true? The appearance. What do we call that? Marketing. Boom. And of course, which is itself a manifestation of the essence of the pathologoscene. Marketing. It's a big drama, a big scam, all of the things based around it to give the appearance of beauty, that is to make the lie that it's also therefore true. Marketing. Marketing is a projection of the pathologos. Interesting? Yes. That belief provides a way of understanding. So the belief, a pathologos belief, provides a way of understanding much as what has been happening around us. So finally, this belief, that's why Dad always yells at Mom. That's why we have to go to this nonsense church to talk to this crazy and listen to this crazy old preacher talk nonsense about this ancient book. That's why blah, 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 blah. That's why every time I am excited about cooking, my dad abuses me and calls me a woman or something. That's why woman is used as an insult. It makes sense of what's happening around us. And so too socially. Okay, we're seeing principles here. If it's principles, it should work all the way down. The pathologos belief brings with it a kind of explanation for the many things in the household that were puzzles. That's what you just said, right? Previously were puzzles. I really like cooking. Why does my dad get so furious when I do it well? It is through that belief that these puzzles become clear. We have our solution. Now, again, what's the equivalent in philosophy? In philosophy, as we read, we look for puzzles in Socrates' work in the text. Now, we don't want to come to a conclusion about the false idea of self and reality. We use those puzzles, get so puzzled as we can, as we read. So, would that mean just using this to gain insight into the other, if this is a distorted reflection of truth, then could it be that when we read, we try and get as puzzled as we can, so finally when we come to a truth about self and reality, it finally makes all those previous puzzles clear? Could that be why we're so interested in puzzles when we read? I don't know, maybe. Check out the Meno series that we're reading at the time of this recording and bring that question with you. We now gain a glimpse. What color? This one. We gain a glimpse into why those people who have been most significant in our upbringing feel the way they do. Okay, let's not highlight everything. People who have been most significant in our upbringing feel the way they do. Why they say what they say. Why they are the way they are. we intuitively grasp how the milieu fits into the pathologos. Okay, so we've been talking about the milieu in society with capitalism and marketing and political and military discord and ignorance, which is stupid when you realize we're all doing the same thing. We're all a walking pathologos. We're all a walking dialectic of our pathologos, causing our suffering internally and externally, until we wake up and realize, well, if that's the case, we better do midwifery. Obviously, laughable if we're not doing midwifery every day. That will provide us the freedom to actually seek the true truth, which is philosophy. No doy, obvious. Why aren't we doing that? We're understanding why. Why are we stuck in the ignorance of what's obvious? And why are we all pretending? Because we're buying into unsuspected social reality. No one talks about philosophy midwifery on Friends or on Seinfeld. And they're cool. They're funny, I think. None of the politicians are using principles when they debate. None of the principles say that they should even be principles. None of the politicians say they should be principles. We all know the politicians are always lying to us, and the politicians know that we know they're lying, but we all pretend to ignore it. We're buying into the bullshit. If we all know politicians are lying all the time, and the politicians know that they're lying, and they know that we know, why are we playing into this bullshit charade? We're accepting that bullshit reality. Just like our pathologos, the unsuspected false belief that we come to about ourselves in reality, makes sense of the milieu of the society of our house. Certain fundamental bullshit beliefs we have to accept, like, oh, there is no truth, or the world is just full of lies, or politicians get to have lies and benefit from their lies because that's what it means to be good, which also is needed for capitalism, because capitalism means everyone lying and manipulating for their own personal benefit to get profit somehow is the best way of doing it. And everything else will give a bad name, communism and socialism, and we'll spit when we say those things. Now they're not saying in words that that's terrible and capitalism is the best, but it's heavily implied. That's the pathologos bullshit. That's the same dynamics, isn't it? Only the milieu is society. What we are learning here is the same principles apply within the house. There is a way of being within the house that requires certain pathologos beliefs to maintain and make sense of. So finally, it makes sense of the milieu. The milieu, or the way of being, the way that people in our house do the things they do, say the things they say, feel the things they feel, and are the way they are. It finally makes sense of the puzzle. Only the puzzle pieces we've been using have all been bullshit to begin with. That's why in philosophy, we're not reading Kant or Hegel or Nietzsche, because the puzzle pieces we get from them dopes are nonsense, driven by their own pathologos that they never understood and resolved because they didn't have midwifery, because we killed Socrates. And the Latin Roman Church took over, and that's modern tradition. So all of those people that we're told are philosophers aren't. And their writing is just an expression of their pathologos. Obviously. They may have had some understanding of some logos to some degree, but like we said before, as soon as they hit their block, that's as far as they go. And everything that they write is just going to be a justification of that bullshit block. Like Kant talking about God and Jesus. Don't ask us questions because Jesus wouldn't trick you. What the heck? Hume. You can never know these things, so a polite man wouldn't ask these questions. What the heck? In other words, the puzzle pieces we get from these philosophers, even Aristotle, especially Aristotle, are bullshit to begin with. So whatever insight you're supposed to come to when you study them at college to make sense of all of that nonsense is going to be a kind of pathologos type thing. The milieu pathologos, or the milieu reality, or whatever. And that's why we read Socrates, because he had the art of midwifery, he had philosophy, He had mastered the Logos, very explicit about that in the Phaedo, in the Phaedo, before he died, talked about it. And therefore, he is able to give us the actual pieces. This is why Socrates feels the way he does. This is why he says what he does. This is why Socrates is the way he is. These are all the parts of the Logos we pull out of the text. That's why we have to read the Balboa translation of Socrates, the actual Greek of Socrates. So we get the actual puzzle pieces. So the intuitive insight we grasp. Now, intuitive insight is another way of saying spiritual initiation, because the word nous is translated in English as direct intuitive insight. To say that in the non-Balboa translations, nous is translated as knowledge, sometimes wisdom, but it's not, because those are English words that don't mean what it means. Now, the Balboa translation uses the English intuitive insight. It's this, but applied to truth. Now, therefore, we should be using the word nous. Intuitive insight is closer, but the word is nous that we don't have an English word for. So what? Well, that intuitive insight, says Socrates, happens as a result of doing a dialectic, which is a puzzle that you're putting together using the structure of the dialectic, using the puzzle pieces that you only pull out from the text. And the purpose of the dialectic is the doorway to, or the method, that's why Socrates calls it the real spiritual tradition. Many are the staff bearers. This is real spiritual tradition. Because if you're doing the dialectic, you're putting the pieces together. If you're using the text, the Balboa translation of Socrates, you have the actual right pieces. Then the purpose, says Socrates, all of that's called dianoia, is to translate that dianoia, is what we just described, into nous, or a direct intuitive grasping of how it all fits together. The difference between, so that's the sameness between the origin scene and philosophy. The difference is the puzzle pieces. It's mum and dad and the family bullshitting, putting on this big act that they learnt themselves. That fits within their religion and culture and society. That's garbage. And they've been treating you garbage, and there's lots of garbage happening in the house. But then all of a sudden, all these garbage puzzle pieces suddenly make sense intuitively, not as the intuitive grasping of nous, or enlightenment, or ousia, but the intuitive grasping of your pathologos, to make sense of the nonsense puzzle pieces. So again, we are using, while this is a description of the parts of the origin scene and how they affect us, we can understand them by reflecting on how they are reflections of principles that are always true, which means they are in being. So not only are we reading this, we're reflecting on it in a certain kind of way relative to being and truth that we learn in philosophy. So not only are we learning about the conditions of the pathologos, we're learning why it has to be so. Because it's a misuse or a diminution or a distortion of the actual principles that we actually are seeking in being. In philosophy. So that's been the theme of today. Things that are very, very important, but are not obvious until you reflect on it. But not just reflect on its parts, reflect on it relative to the principles in being. That's how you come to the insights. So what? That's also why some people come onto the channel and go, hey, why aren't you reading Kant? And we say this, because this is one way of answering that, because the puzzle pieces you get from Kant are pathologos, or false, or wrong, or rubbish. We want to get the puzzle pieces that are legitimate and true from Socrates, so that we can gain the paradigm that we can then use to look at Kant and Hegel and Nietzsche and Aristotle to see how and why they got wrong. Where did they miss the mark from the paradigm? Just the same as before a doctor learns about cancer and tuberculosis, he has to learn about the healthy body. so he can recognize all of the many different distortions of the healthy body. Cancer, tuberculosis, and so on and so on. First, you got to know the paradigm, the ideal. That's what we're doing. So, what's interesting is, in this midwifery here, we are reflecting to see how we can gain greater insight of the ideal and philosophy, but we're also gaining an insight in the ideal of all sicknesses. So you could say the pathologos and everything we're learning about its origin and its effect on us is the ideal sickness. All other sickness is going to be some variation of this. And as we reflect to understand this, we have to be reflecting on the paradigm that it is itself a reflection, a diminished dimensional reflection of. In other words, to understand the paradigm of sickness, you have to see its relationship to the paradigm of paradigm, being, because that's where the principles are. Because even this, the paradigm of sicknesses, still follows principles, still has to misuse the principle of beauty and truth being connected. Still has to misuse the principle of looking for puzzle pieces and then coming to a sudden insight of it as a whole, intuitively. These principles are the exact things we use in being and philosophy that we have to be aware of to understand why the ideal of sickness, pathologos, is able to function the way it does. So we're getting a win-win for us. We're gaining an understanding of the ideal of illness and problems, as well as reflecting in this way to understand more about the ideal of truth. The benefit of reflection in this way. Has that been fun? I think so. And all of that we couldn't do unless we were putting words on what was most significant. Not just our own experiences, not just what's significant in our society with politics and capitalism and things, but also what's most significant in the text. We're putting words on all of them through a reflection with an eye on the ideal. In a spirit of wonder, curiosity, and questions, which is itself the exact opposite of the way in which words are put on it in the pathologo scene. So while we're just talking about the sameness between the ideal of sickness and the ideal of being, we can say, well, what's different is the way in which we reflect, the way in which we put words on what's most meaningful. Openness, curiosity, wonder, looking for patterns between the two and looking for the aspects of the ideal. Fun? Yes. Fun enough to see you next time? I hope so. Thank you so much for joining me. I hope you had fun. I hope this was interesting. I hope you gained many questions and puzzle pieces. As always, like, subscribe on YouTube, follow on Twitch, join on Discord if you want to get notifications when we go live, support on Patreon and donate if you wish, and blah, 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 all that stuff. Thank you so much for joining me, and I hope to see you next time, where we're going to explore further. This, perhaps the most important thing we can be doing while we're here as human beings.